Welcome to this edition of Monitoring the Pulse. As always, I am your host, Arash Bakhshandehpour. And for this episode, I am joined by Tim Kapp. I am very excited for this conversation. Tim, thank you for making time.
Yeah, absolutely. Good afternoon, Arash.
Lovely. And Tim has spent a lot of time in AI with a vast experience. I think it started in economics and now doing some consulting work and operating in a few different buckets with time, being the CEO and founder of Cinco AI as well. Tim, as opposed to me giving the rundown of your experience, would love to give you the chance to help the audience learn a little bit more about your background and what it is, where it is that you're currently spending your time.
Well, like you said, I come from a slightly unusual mix. So I come from an econ background. That's where I started. And we got into economics or econometrics, before we even had AI, or what we traditionally call AI. So I got into that from an economics and econometrics background. From there, I went into software, and I've been in the software industry for years. I've helped work on the W3C, the Internet Standards Body, doing some of those things. And along the way, I've ended up starting several of my own businesses, or partnering or consulting with other businesses. Anyone from Retail Sphere to Intercontinental Hotels to M1, GoDaddy. I've been really fortunate in my career to be exposed to just some absolutely incredible companies who have educated me as much as I think I've educated them on how software works, and especially how AI and data work.
And fast forwarding to today, I think it's the last few years spent with Cinco specifically. Mm-hmm. Could you tell us a little bit about Cinco AI?
So Cinco was born out of this idea that AI is an interesting service when you provide it to someone else, because AI by itself doesn't work. You actually have to have really strong partnerships. People that know the industry, that understand the customers really well, because it's knowledge work. AI is replacing not processes, which is what software really does, but it's replacing knowledge work. And so you have to have those knowledge workers there to teach you. And we realized this, fortunately, early on, and so we positioned the company this way, where we said, we will come in and partner with companies who have knowledge workers, deep industry expertise, and channels. And then we're going to focus our team completely on knowing what AI systems should be used, understand strategy and translating business strategy into AI. And so we focused our entire team around one side of the equation there. And then we partner with people on the other side. So, for example, everyone on our team has a master's degree or PhD, because we wanted that level of expertise in AI. A couple of us are professors on the side. And so we have a deep expertise there, but we realized we couldn't do it all. And it makes for fantastic and honestly, really fun partnerships. And we'll either do consulting with companies that have that, or we'll quite frequently partner with companies and launch products together.
And correct me if I'm wrong, but I think Cinco AI, that started a little over 5 years ago, right, Tim?
Cinco, like you said, was started about 5 years ago. We're located in the US and in Europe. So my partners are in Europe, and we have a complete dev team of our own in Africa. And so between us, we kind of work all hours of the day, and it's been just a lot of fun to work with that environment.
And upon, with the idea and the genesis of Cinco AI specifically, help me understand what was the strategy behind go-to-market. You kind of alluded to that a little bit, right? With solving for one side of the equation, mm-hmm. and ensuring that the talent in-house is expert level. But as far as going to market, identifying partnerships, what exactly was the strategy in doing so for Cinco?
So we're really looking for a very particular kind of person or company to partner with. So the go-to-market strategy was very, like I said, very on our side, very deliberate, very narrow, and very deep. On the other side, we really prioritize industries where complexity is frankly overwhelming humans. I have this great poster on my wall that says, "The world is too complex for humans." And I'm looking for places like that constantly, industries where there's just so many moving parts, or long-lived processes, or regulatory drag, or multi-party coordination, where frankly it's just getting too complex. So you imagine things like airports. You would never imagine humans running 100,000 flights daily. We rely on computers, and if the computers go down, we stop the flights. That's what I'm looking for. So healthcare is one of my favorites. Construction is one of my favorites as well. I had no idea how complex construction can be. And so we're always looking for those kinds of industries that are just overwhelming, frankly. But like I said, we're always looking for companies that have established channels and established trust, because that's something we can't replace with AI. And we'll probably talk about that later, but trust is one of those things that it's not AI's strength.
And I think that's one of the trends that I've identified as well, is that there are these industries. You talked about healthcare, you talked about construction. There's a lot on the regulatory front that these businesses have to confront, but there's also the systems that are in place are pretty antiquated. There's a lot of legacy systems and legacy processes. So I imagine as you're identifying industries to pursue partnerships with, is that something that you find yourself looking for, or that you find yourself identifying?
Yeah, absolutely. So most people we treat AI as software a little bit still. And what we've decided to do is really, like I said, we're really looking where human cognition is fundamentally breaking down. So we're pragmatically always asking, can AI do this better than a human can? And so those are the kinds of things, we like process-heavy companies, things that, humans are just really struggling to manage.
Yeah, that tracks. And I guess a question that I have for you, because we're going to spend a lot of time on AI in this conversation for anyone following along, because I think you're a wealth of knowledge, Tim. Let's say you're hypothetical. You're sitting across from an AI skeptic, an AI doomsdayer, someone that hears the word AI and it sends chills down their spine. What is your approach to that conversation with that person?
So there's two kinds of people that get chills down their spine. Those who are skeptics, but are you talking more someone who's actually worried about it, what it's going to do to business?
Let's start there. Yes.
So that's one I get a lot, and that's because I get it from my students. Frankly, I get it a lot from, I'll have parents. I'm teaching college, and I will still have parents call me and say, is my child's major going to be safe? And there's a lot of fear out there, and this might surprise you, but I usually start by agreeing with them. I think the world is changing, and I think we don't want to stick our heads in the sand because the world is changing, and knowledge work is fundamentally changing. So there is a lot of rational fear out there, not irrational fear about where our job's going to be. I mean, computer science, for example, last year, in the last 12 months, we've already lost 27% of our entry-level jobs in computer science. I'm hearing rumors of, people, single positions with hundreds of applicants who aren't getting in. That said, immediately after saying that, I also then say, AI does not eliminate value. The value of whatever you're building, that whatever business is building is still there. It's just shifting value. So the trick is you've got to figure out where it's shifting. And so you've got to know that, if your job is based on memorized knowledge, you probably got a problem. If it's based on judgment, ethics, creativity, system thinking, system design, you might feel like a superhero right now because it just took all the hard work, memorizing, remembering, all that stuff, and turned you into a superhero. So that's what I'm looking for. And like I said, I think there's a lot of skeptics, a lot of people that are worried about AI, and rightfully so. But if they reframe the problem as value it's like squeezing a balloon. Value doesn't go anywhere. You're just squeezing a different part of the balloon. So figure out where the balloon's getting squeezed to. Where's the air going, and you'll be a superhero.
No question. It's in conversations that I'm having, and I think this is thematic across most industries, especially in the midst of this AI boom, is misinterpreting what exactly it can do for businesses. Right? There's the concern of displacing careers, but in reality, think about this is maybe an optimistic outlook, but the barrier of entry to building platforms and building technologies and building businesses is lowered. So to your point, it encourages that creativity. It encourages an idea that historically someone would have required funding, a larger team to get to market, and now it's a couple of people can get a pretty foundational and strong idea to market. Right? It's an opportunity.
It's a huge opportunity for us. I'll give you the example. Literally in the last 60 days, we've launched 3 production-level systems, and these were not trivial systems. They were each of the 3 was something that a year ago would have taken us at least 6 months. And we've kind of figured out, we've been practicing this really hard. We've been looking at our processes. We fundamentally ripped out the processes we had as a company. I'll give you an example. We are giving up on Agile development, which is a lot of your listeners will know about, because we think AI completely has made the economics of Agile it's erased them. And now it's more important to take time up front and then hand all these great decisions over to your agents than it is to put off decisions like Agile always encouraged us to do. So we've been completely rethinking, and that's one thing I would encourage every company to do, is rethink your processes, because AI probably changed the economics of things that used to work. You need to reconsider the economics of why you made those decisions and why you use those particular processes, and see if AI has wiped out the need. Like I said, I just published an article this morning on how we do Agile and last week, and I truly believe Agile might be dead. And it's not that Agile is a bad thing, it's just the economics changed.
And you touched on something that I actually want to draw from that thread on. I think a lot of the concern in like standard users and standard adopters or even business owners that are considering the use of AI, is there a way to manage the rate of growth around AI, right? Like that's something that is so top of mind for people. I guess my question to you is around the regulatory stuff. Do you think there is a path to controlling the rate of growth here? Is that something to be concerned about? Or is it a matter of just embracing it?
Let me take this from 2 points of view, the inside the organization and outside. Inside the organization, so there's probably not the regulation you were talking about, but it helps understand the speed of this. I mentioned that this is one reason we're getting rid of Agile. Inside an organization, what we're finding is AI can quickly overwhelm an organization that doesn't have its processes in place, doesn't have its thinking clear. If you don't have your processes, your thinking, your data, those kinds of things in place, in a human-run organization, there's always time to do that, and you just keep having those conversations. In an AI-run organization, that's like pouring gasoline on an organization that doesn't have those in place. And so, we'll often turn down projects if we don't feel if we feel like they come to us and they say, well, can we throw AI onto this problem and solve it? And we realize the problem is a process design problem. If they don't have their own processes in place, we'll typically turn those down, because all that will happen, we'll take AI, put it on those processes, and it'll just be a disaster. It's just a faster way to fail in that case. Let's take it at a bigger, let's take it at a societal level. I do have worries at this level. Economists are always, we're known for saying that, the horse and buggy was killed off. There was, the car industry came about. So jobs are always just moving around, and that's honestly part of it. It's bad for the people in the horse and buggy industry, but it's always part of a healthy economy to have change. The difference that I see is that the predicted value of this change now, that the incremental add to the global economy is predicted to be $23 trillion by 2030 and $40 trillion. I'm averaging a bunch of different studies, but $40 trillion by 2040. To put that in perspective, 23 trillion is like adding the entire Chinese economy to the world economy in less than 5 years, in 4 years now. The 40 trillion is like adding the China and almost like adding the US, both of those together to the world economy. You don't just add that big of those two economies and not have major disruption. And so we're looking at this, like I said, we're already seeing shifts in the software development market. We built tools that hurt us first, or at least took away entry-level jobs, and we're seeing it in a big way, 25% roughly, 27 by some counts. So we are seeing that, and it is happening so fast that people aren't adjusting. I'm talking, I've been working with a couple of universities, 3 or 4 universities actually, about having these discussions, and they can't even adapt their programs, the training programs, fast enough, let alone the people who are being trained. So it's going to be a little out of control. Yeah, I believe we're going to need something like universal basic income, which is that's what my policy response would be, because I personally think the genie's out of the bottle. We're not going back on this. Yeah.
That's the piece that I was going to ask about is what do you think, number one, what do you think like the potential solutions to this could be to protect workforce? But the main thing was institutions are where people are going to learn, develop, and prepare themselves and establish themselves for the remainder of their careers. I'm thinking of schools and educational programs. Do you think they have foundationally what they need in place to help set up those people that are going to them down the line? And the answer is, it sounds like implied, is probably not.
No, I don't think they have it in place. In fairness, everyone's figuring this out right now.
Everyone.
Most companies don't have stuff in place for this. Universities definitely don't have stuff in place. We're all trying to figure it out. I don't want to claim that I have all of the answers in any way.
Sure.
I'm actively trying to work with groups figuring this out. I really think that AI is going to usher in an era, has the potential to usher in an era for humanity that we've never seen before. Productivity that we're always talking about ChatGPT as like kind of the cool kid on the block right now. I actually think things like protein unfolding will probably have a bigger impact on our overall lives, on health concerns, definitely. Cancer research, things like that. I truly believe we might live 20 to 30 years longer with the stuff I'm already seeing coming out. I work with, that's one of the things that I work with on the side, is I've been working with AI for Good, and I've been lucky enough to help them run to chair their contest every year. There's a UN program where we see the latest startups and the things that are just designed to help humanity, not just companies, but organizations that are really on the front edge of just useful things for humanity that will make our life better. And the stuff we're seeing is incredible. Health and wellness is a huge one. Education. I'm hoping we'll be talking to dogs soon. We'll see.
You and I both.
Yeah.
Something else that you mentioned a couple minutes ago was you identified a partnership where institutionally things weren't in place for you guys to implement, for them or to partner with them. Something that I like to do in these conversations, as I speak with founders and entrepreneurs as well, is if you could draw an anecdotal use case for me, an instance where maybe you walked away from a partnership or from a client engagement, and we'll say like if it was like to maintain brand integrity. I'd love to, anonymity where it's necessary, obviously.
Yeah.
But we'd love to hear a time that occurred.
So we'll go, like I said, the biggest thing that our biggest red flag right now when we partner with someone is process. Sorry, can you still hear me? Okay.
Perfect. Yep.
There, we got our sound back. I'll start over with that. So our biggest red flag right now is process. We love, every company is a process company at the end of the day. And so we're always looking, and frankly, most strategy is related directly to the processes that a company becomes world-class at. And so we're always looking for, do they understand what they need to be world-class at? That's our first question is, and we'll help with that sometimes. We try to translate their business strategy into an AI strategy, and we look at what are the capabilities they need, and most companies make the mistake of trying to be everything for everyone or trying to put AI everywhere. That's probably the worst thing you could do. So we're looking for, what are the 2 or 3 processes you need to be world-class at, and then let's put AI there. Everyone's right now trying to put it everywhere, finance, HR, everything. I just don't think you need to do it. It's expensive to do that. So we first of all look for, are they clear on what they want to be on their differentiation and how and what 2 or 3 processes they need to be world-class at to make this thing work. Then I'm looking for, do they actually have those processes in place today? Can they run those processes, or are we just going to light the fuse to something that's going to blow up? Those are my biggest things. A strategy. I truly believe great AI is more about business strategy than it is about technology. Harvard came out with everyone's been quoting this study, but it was Harvard or MIT, I can't remember, but they came out with a study that said, the vast majority of AI projects fail. And it's true. I think they said 70%, something like that. We've been clocking 80%, not on our projects, but when you dig into that study and what we've seen, it has nothing to do with technology. Almost nothing to do with technology. Sometimes it's your data isn't prepared. That's always a problem. It's almost always they don't understand their own strategy or where to put it. And that's what we're seeing. The failures are strategic and leadership failures. They aren't technology failures. But the headlines would lead you to believe otherwise.
Yeah. I would wager like one of the largest missteps now is the over-reliance on AI without strategy or clear path or brand or whatever brand integrity that you're trying to take to market.
Yeah.
Because at that point it's a bit rudderless, I think, as a business. Number one. And number two, the piece that you mentioned earlier, which I'm speaking with so many founders right now that have built very specialized, niche-oriented AI tools that can help address certain things for very niche markets. The concern, or I think that what happens is businesses integrating beyond the stage that they're actively in, where it requires people to manage, people to educate and train, and then systems to oversee, manage, educate, and train as well. That itself is time consuming. And with that itself can come sunk cost, right? That's
So here's a great, I'm older, so but some of your listeners will have read, there's a great book that we all had to read in MBA school called The Goal. I don't know if you've ever read it, but it's about constraint analysis, and in this is from the 80s. And what they found, they talk about how where inventory starts piling up in your business, that's where you need to focus. And what we found is that is suddenly true of all these businesses. We've just made knowledge work so fast, research, writing, all of those things, writing product requirements, documents, things like that, is so fast now that we're starting to see what I would call an inventory problem, where companies have more ideas than they are able to execute on, like you said, because you've still got these real constraints in distribution and partnerships and getting it out to people. And you've got serious constraints there, but the people that feel like they've got this new AI superpower are just, making as much knowledge and documents and things that they possibly can. And so we suddenly have this glut of work that could possibly be done, and no one can figure out why it's not getting done. It's an inventory problem.
It's almost like the opposite of analysis paralysis, right? Like that people are emboldened to make the leap, right? Without having done the upfront due diligence.
That's a great
what
way.
Exactly, they're making the leap with.
We need to come up with a good name for that, because that is exactly right. It's no longer analysis paralysis. This stuff will do all the analysis for you. It's just completely the opposite.
It's interesting times as you look at. So we again, thank you for kind of humoring the fire drill of questions, but and walking through your background. Again, timkapp.com. You can engage directly with Tim. You can find time or book him for speaking engagements. I'm curious, Tim, as you look at these next 6 to 12 months, you're obviously spread across projects, right? There's the time that you're spending as a professor on campus, up at BYU. Is that correct? Right?
I've just switched. I was at the University of Utah, and now I'm at BYU.
No hard feelings, good sir. It is what it is. It's less of a commute for you. That's what I'll attribute it to. And then on top of that, there's the consulting that you do as well for businesses independently, and on top of that is Cinco. I guess for each of those things independently, what do you anticipate will be priorities over the course of the next 6 to 12 months?
For my businesses, our number one priority at Cinco right now is changing our processes so that we ourselves have adapted our work to how I think this work is evolving. And like I said, I would say that should be the number one or the number one worry right now of most companies is you need to go in and really think how AI is fundamentally changing the economics of the work you do. And it's not that it's going to erase value, it's just going to move it around, and your business, I don't care what industry it is, your business today is going to look very different 3 years from now. And understanding, again, everyone's trying to understand the technology. I'd argue understand the economics first, then figure out the technology. Otherwise, you're going to just put technology in all the wrong places.
Sure.
As far as the other places I'm working, I'm working with a group called Cyber Eagle, and the National AI and Cybersecurity ISO. The ISOs were set up by President Obama to help kind of a quasi-business government program to protect the critical infrastructure of the U.S. That's another worry. So at a national level, I keep using the phrase, we're pouring gasoline on things, and we did just that with hackers. So imagine all this cool stuff we're doing for our software developers. Well, we simultaneously did it for hackers, and so hacking is up 700%.
Wow.
And so there's some real societal issues that are coming out of this very quickly. Jobs, we're struggling to place entry-level people currently in software, but that's going to hit legal next. That's already hitting writing and marketing. And it's not that all jobs are going away, but we are hitting entry-level jobs. And so there's another concern. Where are we going to get our future leaders from if we're not hiring entry levels anymore? And so
Sure.
Every company's got to think about that.
Yeah, that's actually a question, a bit of a bonus round for you, Tim, that I'm curious about. So again, you've talked about what you would say to parents of students if they're concerned about their kids and their kids' degree. I'm a freshman on campus, and I find you between classes and I say, Mr. Kapp, Professor Kapp, I have no idea how to go about making a decision in what to study. And furthermore, I have no idea how to go about making the decision about what I want to do for my career, with the implications of what AI is today and what it is going to mean to those things over the next 5, 10, 15, 20 years. How would you, in my seat, go about making those decisions?
So like I said, I'm looking for, if knowledge work is suddenly not scarce anymore. We used to make knowledge work scarce. We're worried about, can you do the work faster than the next person? Do you have more knowledge memorized than the next person? You can't rely on that anymore. ChatGPT will out-knowledge you every day of the week, okay?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
So I look for, where are the constraints left? Because there's always constraints, always distribution. So I want to look heavily. This is one reason Cinco partners with distribution companies, because we believe they're incredibly valuable and becoming more valuable. So we always partner with distribution. Always, look at licensing. IP will probably be, intellectual property is going to be one of those things that we've always thought highly of it. It's the value of IP will double. I'm making up a number there, but IP is going to become more valuable. Anywhere those constraints remain, upstream resources that go into production, those will become more valuable. So I'm looking at real estate. Again, that's why so I look at those kinds of industries and say, who's building distribution? Who owns some upstream resources that are scarce and will always be scarce no matter what knowledge work looks like? And in every industry, there are players who are in that. So you don't have to change industries. You just need to change players or refocus your company a little bit. I like to say it's not the end of work. I think everyone's thinking this is the end of work. It's the end of pretending that work was ever just about typing faster than the person next to you or knowing more. You won't. Doctors, let's take medical for example. The doctor who relied entirely on just having more medical training than someone else, that's not a place to create value. The doctor that understands that risk is important, that patient care and trust is important, will be more valuable than ever.
That's powerful, and I couldn't agree more. Again, going back to the conversations I've had, I think there is something to positioning yourself with opportunities that encourage creativity, that encourage identity, free thinking, that encourage a layer of ethic or an ethos with whatever it is that you're doing on a day-to-day. And then from there, everything we're talking about is supplemental. So again, Tim, thank you so much for the time.
Absolutely.
I could speak with you for hours. I really look forward to going through this and looking forward to publishing this out there for everyone to hear. Again, for anyone interested, you can find Tim on LinkedIn, Kapp, K-A-P-P. And you can also take a look at his site, timkapp.com. He is all over the place, spread very thin, so I couldn't appreciate him making time for this more.
I appreciate it. Thank you so much, Arash.